Have you ever heard the chilling case of the Hinterkaifeck murders? It's one of the most gruesome and mystifying unresolved crimes of the 20th century. A farmhouse in Germany, 6 lives claimed, and over a century of unanswered questions. Let's dive into this unnerving tale of the unknown. The year was 1922. Deep in the Bavarian countryside of Germany stood an isolated family farmstead known as Hinterkaifeck. The Gruber family resided there. Andreas, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her 2 young children, also named Cecilia and Joseph. They were simple folk, living a quiet rural existence, until things took a dark turn. It began with strange occurrences. Andreas had reportedly discovered footprints leading from the woods to their home, but no return tracks. The family noted peculiar sounds coming from the attic and other oddities like missing keys and unexplained newspaper appearances. Yet they stayed. Perhaps they reasoned it was just their imagination. Then came the night of March 31st, 1922, a night that would forever mark Hinterkaifeck for infamy. The exact sequence of events is unknown, but here's what investigators pieced together. On that night, one by one, members of the family were lured to the barn. First Andreas, then Cecilia Sr., Victoria, and little Cecilia Jr. They were brutally bludgeoned to death with a mattock, a heavy farming tool. Whoever the killer was, they knew how to manipulate the situation so each family member would enter unsuspectingly. Young Joseph was murdered in his crib, and their housemaid, Maria, a new hire who had just begun her first day, met the same grisly fate. But here's where the case takes an even darker turn. The killer didn't flee the scene immediately. Evidence shows that the perpetrator stayed in the house for several days. They fed the livestock, cooked meals, and made themselves at home, all while the lifeless bodies of their victims lay nearby. Neighbors grew concerned when the family hadn't been seen, but nothing seemed awry at first. Smoke was still seen rising from the chimney, and the animals were being cared for. It wasn't until April 4th, when local townsfolk decided to investigate, that the full horror was discovered. The barn was a macabre scene of death. The bodies, stacked on top of one another beneath hay, showed signs of a violent and uncontrollable rage. Little Joseph and the maid were found inside the house. Astonishingly, forensic science in 1922 provided only limited avenues of investigation. Despite examining over 100 suspects, authorities were unable to identify the killer, but suspicions ran high. Some believed Victoria's estranged suitor might have been responsible. Others thought perhaps someone with a feud against Andreas acted out vile revenge. There were even conspiracy theories hinting at a supernatural force, imagining that the strange occurrences before the murders were ghostly warnings of the carnage to come. Yet none of these theories were substantiated with evidence. What's perhaps most harrowing is young Cecilia Jr.'s fate. Autopsy reports later suggested she may have survived her initial injuries for several hours. Clumps of her own hair were found clutched in her hands, as though she had ripped it out in agony. It's a haunting detail that remains etched in the minds of anyone who hears this story. Decades later, investigators revisited the case in hopes of solving it using modern methods. Yet even with advancements in forensic science, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain an unsolved riddle, forever shrouded in darkness. The original farmhouse no longer exists. It was demolished in 1923. But the gruesome tale continues to captivate and unsettle those who learn about it. Is the Hinterkaifeck killer still out there? Probably not. Logic dictates that, given the passage of time, they too have succumbed to mortality. But what drove someone to commit such a cold and calculated act? And why did they linger in a house of death as though it were their own home? Perhaps more unsettling than the identity of the killer are the broader questions this mystery prompts. How much do we truly know about the people we share our lives with, or those who watch us from the shadows? It leaves us with that age-old haunting uncertainty, the fear of the unknown lurking just beyond the threshold of our safe havens. To this day, many pilgrimage to the site, now marked with a memorial stone. They visit not just to remember the victims, but to probe the unsettling void that unexplained mysteries leave in our minds. But although questions are asked and theories are imagined, the answers remain elusive, locked away in the silent whispers of the past. So, what do you make of the Hinterkaifeck murders? A case of jealousy and rage? A premeditated slaughter for reasons unknown? Or something far more sinister that evades our every attempt at comprehension? Be sure to share your thoughts below. And stay tuned for more eerie tales from creepiest true mysteries. You never know where the next story might take us.